All right, so we are here coming to you a bit earlier than usual, but that's just because I've been a little bit under the weather. And let's be honest, here within the next 2 hours, I'm probably going to be passed out asleep. And so I'm here to talk college football before that. Joined today by Drew England and PG. Drew, PG, where can the people find all your great content?
Hey, some of you guys, thanks for jumping on with us last night. The Under Official Review podcast. Myself and Zach Merrill, we host that one, and then we had our boy Jay from Unfair Sports on last night. But you can find us on YouTube, our YouTube channel, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, um, Apple, and Spotify. We do our audio stuff on there as well. But yeah, we just talk college football across the board. Have a good time. You guys have been on the show before, and we're just trying to grow it. So go over, subscribe, like, all that good stuff. Hit the comments and help us out. So we got some other things in the works that we're excited about. But hey, once again, just talking some college football. I'd love to do it.
PG, what about yourself?
Yeah, y'all can find me on YouTube, Apple, Google, or Spotify, The PG Show. You guys can find me on Twitter, The PG Show _. We're covering a lot of transfer portal, recruiting news, Colorado stuff. So come on over and hear my redneck hot takes.
There you go, Hank.
Right.
Thanks for being in here. And guys, it's been a big week in terms of recruiting, transfer portal. I mean, you name it. Early signing day right around the corner. Transfer portal's really heating up now that these prospects have taken visits, getting a better understanding of the landscape, plus the opportunities in front of them. And let's kick it off with some recruiting. Specifically, y'all already know. Got to kick it off with Alabama recruiting. Alabama gets in a 5-star this week. Keon Keeley, top 10 player in high school football. Huge win.
Mm-hmm.
Decommitted from Notre Dame, which that could be a theme on this stream this evening. And ultimately ends up with the Alabama Crimson Tide. I think this was one that was expected, but don't blink now. Nick Saban and Alabama are not done. Steve Wiltfong has inserted 2 crystal balls, one for James Smith, the 5-star defensive lineman, the other for Quay Russaw, the 5-star linebacker. And Alabama's really, really trending for 5-star offensive tackle Caden Proctor to attempt to flip him. They got the in-home visit yesterday, and apparently he will be taking a visit to Tuscaloosa this weekend. So, Drew, PG, what are y'all thinking, man? Bama recruiting really starting to heat up, and I mean they're already the #1 class in the nation.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's going to continue. I think a lot of people are. And I don't know if you could say Alabama is kind of flying under the radar because they're at #1, but I mean, with everything else, they're not really being talked about. They're just kind of slowly chugging along and doing their thing and picking up these big time recruits and prospects like they normally do. And I think that Nick Saban is totally fine with taking the heat off of him and his program and letting other people talk about how Texas and some of these other schools are getting players. Ohio State just got 2 for coming up and stuff like that. And so I think he's totally cool with just having that. Hey, chug along. We're going to do our thing. We're going to build our arsenal back and take a run at the national championship next year. So I think he's perfectly fine with where they're sitting at, being the #1 recruiting class under the radar, if you will. So,
yeah, interesting to note, of the 25 prospects in this class, 18 of them are composite top 300 guys. 2 of those that would be factored in are the #1 JUCO player in the nation, Malik Benson, and then the #2 JUCO player in the nation, Justin Jefferson. So, I mean, 20 of your 25 guys, I mean, that's big time. And then your other guys, you look at your guys coming just outside the top 300 composite. Cole Adams comes in at number 303. You look at Brayson Hubbard, athlete, number 370. You look at Raymond Polito. Oh, I love Cole Adams as well.
I had a chance to watch him a couple times early.
Underrated, isn't he?
That first game against Bixby when he got hurt, but then got to watch him last year a little bit too. Just talented, sneaky fast. He does all the right things. Great route runner, and he's got that just an unbelievable work ethic. So I think that that's another reason why Bama was so high on him. Is he has the intangibles. Yeah, he's got the speed, the catch radius, all that stuff, but the work ethic that he has is uncanny, and I think that that drew the Bama staff to him more than anything else.
Yeah, he was one I was really, really wanting to keep. I know Oklahoma was making a push, especially with the new staff y'all got. Really was excited that Bama looks to be keeping him. But, I mean, you look at an interior offensive lineman, McElderry, at number 405, and then a kicker. This class right here is exceptional. 1 3-star. I mean, this class is very impressive. PG, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, as you said, the class is pretty impressive, and it's only got a chance to become more impressive with the additions of Quay Russo and James Smith, potentially Alabama going after Caden Proctor. But there is another player on the board that I think a lot of people skip over, and that's Damari Brown over at American Heritage, who I think Wiltfong even has a crystal ball in right now, right? You guys have 25 commits in this class, and I know there's more out there for you guys, especially once you get outside the top 200. So Nick Saban potentially could put up a 31 player class here. And, if you land those guys, you're sitting at almost a 330 composite score. So you're getting dangerously close to Texas A&M's #1 class of all time. But yeah, I mean, Nick Saban's just doing Nick Saban things by going out there and continuing to land top tier talent. And, by no means do I think Alabama can't go out there and win a national championship this year, trying to maybe go in there and solidify some spots through the transfer portal and in this recruiting class that maybe Alabama was kind of lacking in, whether that's in the wide receiver position or on the interior defensive line. I mean, that's really all I got to say about it is they're really coming after that #1 spot, and they've got a good shot at it. I will say it's interesting. I think that Quay Russo and James Smith, as I know for sure, Quay is taking a visit out to Auburn.
I don't think that's set to happen anymore.
Is that not set to happen anymore?
I believe the newest on that is that they're canceling those. So I mean, it's really looking good because I've told you guys that those are two that it must land for Alabama. Those two are must land.
No, they're must land. They're in your state, and they're top. Especially, I think James Smith for you guys. I think that's
huge.
Yeah. But Quay Russo, I always had this in the back of my mind of, well, could he go to Florida? Or, Auburn always I thought had to have been something to think about because of them being in-state too. But yeah, no, if Alabama's able to land those 3 5-stars, that gets you 3 more in there. That put you at 5 or 6. And then, like I said,
they're still after Desmond Ricks. I mean, LSU and Florida, that's going to be a really fun battle to watch. Now, just as a little note, and then I'll pass it back to you, PG, and then you, Drew. How funny would it be if LSU ends up landing Desmond Ricks because Corey Raymond is now out there at Florida? It's a battle between Florida, LSU, Bama. I don't know. I just think that'd be kind of ironic for LSU to win that one when they no longer have a Randa or a Corey Raymond and they're still pulling in 5-star defensive backs. I don't know. That's just kind of cool and funny to me. PG, I pass it back to you.
No, yeah, I think it'd be funny, and I think there's a good shot that Desmond Ricks ends up in in Death Valley. He's good friends with Toviano, and Toviano just committed to LSU.
Good looking out.
I get that there's good smoke on the front for Alabama, but I don't know. Something about me screams Florida for that kid. Something about it screams Florida. But again, I'm not shocked if he ends up at LSU or Alabama. And if you guys land Desmond Ricks, I think you guys got that #1 class of all time locked up.
Yeah, that'd be if they land Desmond Ricks, this would be the best defensive back class I think ever.
And also something to point out though is those are 5 stars that we've mentioned, but there are a couple 5 stars that I think Alabama fans should watch to potentially maybe you guys could sneak in last minute or try to get something in it. And one of those is Deuce Robinson, the 5-star tight end out of Pinnacle, Arizona, or Phoenix, Arizona, out of Pinnacle High School. He wants to be a 2-sport athlete playing baseball and football. I don't know how Nick Saban feels about that, but Alabama, it is a place where you can play baseball and not play it necessarily in the cold. So, and Alabama is in one of those top 5 choices. So I would like to say that Alabama has a shot there with Deuce Robinson as well. And then I'll be curious to see if, late, after Nick Saban sees who exits the portal, if you guys can get on Nicholas Harbor.
Yeah, that'd be a huge one. Drew, I saw you wanting to intervene. What are you thinking?
Well, I just going back to the LSU point, I think people are not devaluing the fact that Jamar Cain is a heck of a recruiter.
Oh, true.
And I think obviously on the defensive side is where he does his job and everything like that. But he has great relationships with some of those guys that are getting recruited on the offensive side. And so, as a whole, we saw the fruits of it at Oklahoma when he was here, and Arizona State. He was able to do some good recruiting and stuff like that. But watch, as some of those names and stuff like that, that our LSU is battling for. That's a big reason. And then obviously Brian Kelly and the success that they had winning the West helps them too. But back to the Alabama recruiting, let's just be honest. Alabama is going to be in on just about everybody because of their track record and what they've done, and Nick Saban being there. So not everybody, or not there's nobody that's going to be out of the reach of Bama landing them. So just because they're there, not saying that they can get every single guy. Obviously, they're not, but it still has an appeal to a lot of these top recruits. So
yeah, one of those where you're not going to land every 5-star, but on National Signing Day, if we turned on the news and said X 5-star flips to Alabama, we'd all say, yeah,
you're not going to be surprised if if Bama gets a flip from 1 or 2.
Exactly. And guys, it's not just Alabama recruiting that's heating up right now, as the Oklahoma Sooners are really shaping up right now. A ton of crystal ball predictions have been inserted in Oklahoma's favor, and not just Oklahoma, guys. Texas, huge win for the #1 inside linebacker in the nation, Anthony Hill, probably the biggest position of need for the Longhorns. And then we'll certainly be talking about Miami as well as Colorado, but we cannot just pass over Oklahoma. Definitely want to start on the recruiting front. Drew, pick up where you left off, man. What's the situation with Oklahoma recruiting? Because I know there's a lot of chatter and excitement right now among Sooners.
There is, and especially we're less than a week out of early signing day, and it has become the signing day the last couple of years, especially now.
True.
Especially to this year is going to be the biggest because of the transfer portal and everything like that. And we were talking before we got on about just how you're going to start seeing. Guys are going to sign. They're going to declare their intent of where they're going to go, and then you'll really start seeing the transfer portal after that really start to heat up because things are starting to smooth out as far as recruiting classes, and so you're going to see some of these guys just kind of waiting to see where certain 5-stars or guys sign, and then make their move or make their declare whether, hey, am I sticking around? Am I going to throw my name in the transfer portal? So, with the respect to recruiting, yes, the biggest name obviously is Peyton Bowen in the news that, there's some crystal balls out there. There's some predictions, stuff like that. I don't think you're going to know officially until, who knows at this point. So, but all signs are favorably pointing to OU, but in this day and time, you never know with what things transpire. But then there's some other guys that, Tassili Akana, there's some other guys that are, heavily in our favor, as well as obviously the transfer portal guys kind of going hand in hand because you're taking these last official visits for these recruits getting ready to sign early. But then you also have the official visits for some of these key transfer portal guys at the same time. And so they're really trying to parallel these two things at the same time. And it's interesting because used to you could really focus on, just the recruiting, just the high school guys, but now you're almost having to, put that alongside with some of these transfer portal guys and using the transfer portal guys maybe as a pitch to some of these high school guys saying, hey, I think we've got such and such coming in here. We could really pair you with them and really could have a really good defense or an offense or whatever the case is. Or, some of these recruits are asking these questions to some of these coaches. Hey, who are you looking at in the transfer portal? What are you guys, going to do next year as far as, my position and where do you see me fitting into this? So some of those conversations are happening, not just as a, oh, hey coach, I know you want me, but where am I kind of fitting into the fold as far as some of these transfers that you guys are trying to bring in? So I find that to be an interesting selling point down the stretch here the last couple of days before we get to signing day.
Yeah, PG, before I pass it to you, Brandon Brandon says SEC recruiting is ridiculous right now, and I include Oklahoma and Texas in that. And if we just look at the top 10 classes in the nation and we go ahead and preemptively put Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC, you're talking Alabama, Georgia, Texas, LSU, Oklahoma, Tennessee. That's 6 in the top 10. It is wild. Savage Dog, thank you for joining us this evening. Your dogs. I mean, what a class. Average recruit rank of 93.5. 23 prospects. I mean, the last thing y'all need, though, is Deuce Robinson. And I swear to God, if somehow Georgia pulls a rabbit out the hat and signs the number 1 tight end in the nation again, I might scream because y'all have enough tight ends for the next century. Goodness gracious. PG, go ahead and talk to us about all this stuff with Oklahoma recruiting right now.
Yeah, before I get into Oklahoma recruiting, and I know Savage Dog might not like this, but a team that I would be really watching out for with Deuce Robinson is Colorado because of Deion Sanders. Now, he currently does not hold an offer from Colorado. I do think that changes because, remember, Deuce Robinson wants to play baseball at the major league level, and he wants to play NFL football. And who better to go out there and learn from than the man who did it himself and didn't just do it. He did it at a high level. So I'd be curious to watch that one and see how that recruitment unfolds. But when it comes to Oklahoma recruiting, I think everybody is really high on the 2023 stuff, obviously, because we've seen all of the crystal balls come in for Peyton Bowen. And that's just been, watching what's been going on with the Kana and the Hicks, fiasco. That's all insane. But I think you're really starting to see Oklahoma heat up on the 2024 trail really quickly. And I think it's becoming a little bit underrated of exactly what's going on there. They threw out 2 offers the other day that were pretty significant. One to a guy named Adris Farouk, which that name doesn't ring a bell. That's Jalil Farouk's brother. And
Cousin.
then cousin. Yes, correct. And then another player out there called, I'm going to get this one wrong, Ife Obigdigwu.
Yeah, your guess is as good as mine. So.
Yeah, and then there is another player from the same high school at St. Francis Academy, and his name is Michael Van Buren. Now, I bring this up because he's a 4-star quarterback, and he has thrown Oklahoma in his top choices, getting ready to make a commitment announcement. But the big thing about Michael Van Buren is, and I've kind of been watching his Twitter, it's almost like he's subtly dropping the boomer hints when if he got his offer from OU. He tweeted out the eyes and said boomer. And so things like that. So I'm starting to watch Oklahoma, starting to watch the crystal balls flowing for 24 for Nigel Smith, Peyton Pierce, Casey Poe. And then on Sunday, we have the news about David Stone. What's going to happen with that? Is it a reclassification deal? Is this going to be I'm coming back to Del City to play my senior season? What's going on with David Stone? So I think that's going to be a big one for Oklahoma as well. And something I think a lot of people are just kind of overlooking right now because of Peyton Bowen.
So one thing, and D pointed it out earlier, but the thing about Robinson in baseball, the one thing that Colorado is lacking is a baseball program. They do not have a baseball program, so that might hinder him. It would be a perfect setup if they did, but yeah, Colorado doesn't have a baseball program, so that may be, something that Robinson, if he's really looking at the baseball side of things, may hurt Colorado's chances.
That I did not know. So That's actually a good point. But yeah, 2023 for Oklahoma. I mean, it's going to finish great. I don't know when Akana is going to commit, but if you're able to win, if you land Akana, Tees, and Bowen by the end of the cycle, puts you at 26 commits with a 295
not
score.
only Bowen, but a lot of people think that his brother will follow him too. So you may get a double.
He's 2024.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. But you're in for Eli, which is in itself a win for the next year.
And y'all, I told y'all yesterday, I believe it was, maybe it was Wednesday evening. I don't know. They're all blending together. But I told y'all the other evening in the group chat, I think if you get one, you get the other. And I don't feel that way about any other institution. No. But because of the long-standing history Oklahoma has had with the family, and 2, because of the proximity to home, absolutely. I think Oklahoma is one of these few institutions in the Bowen recruiting battle that if you get one, you land both.
Yeah.
I really feel good about those chances. Definitely.
Well, I mean, at the point where you have the crystal ball being inserted in your favor, I mean, and you look at the people on 24/7 Sports that have inserted that crystal ball, it's about as accurate as you could possibly want. I mean, some of the biggest names in the industry. Look, if they're saying it, there's something. Whether it comes to fruition or not remains to be seen. But if they're saying it, there's something.
There.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. They're not just going to
No.
throw it out there for nothing. So
the people that have inserted the crystal ball predictions in favor of the Sooners, I mean, consummate professionals.
Eli Bowen could be one of the first Sooners to commit in 2024, which I know a lot of Sooners fans have kind of been scratching their heads, like, why are people not committing yet? Remember, BV has a policy, but now that policy is, basically, if you start to go somewhere else, we're just going to recruit over you. It's not necessarily that we're stripping your offer, but I do think that is kind of inhibiting some players from committing to Oklahoma, because there are some players that I've heard, like 3 or 4 guys for 2024 that are, yes, we're coming to Oklahoma. They just want to finish out their official visits, get all those in, get wined and dined, actually get the whole recruiting cycle done. So I know people are kind of like, what's going on with 2024 while everybody else is kind of getting stuff. OU's fine. OU's fine. They've already got, I would say, 2 backdoor 5-star commits on the defensive line for 2024.
Yeah, this is something D made up a good point. That's something that I was kind of talking about earlier. I didn't know if I wanted to fully say it, but yes, they have visited UCLA. So
yeah, and it makes sense. Cali kids going back to California. We were talking about this, D, before the camera got rolling, that in a perfect world, the Uongalele family probably wishes, as much as they're rooting, I have no doubt that they're rooting for Caleb Williams and his family. In a perfect world, they probably wish Caleb Williams was still at Oklahoma, so that way the door would be open at USC for Uongalele and his brother.
Well, and if you think back to if Clay Helton would have been the head coach there, could have maybe saved his job if he were still there to get a transfer like that to USC. And,
True.
And, it could have been.
He'd have needed a lot to save his job, but it certainly would have helped. Yeah, absolutely. Sure. No doubt about it. Now, keeping the party rolling, I mean, what do we want to talk about? We want to talk about Texas. I mean, look, the Texas Longhorns have had a huge day in recruiting.
Hey, knock.
Talking about the DJ thing. They just got a thing on On3 for DJ.
Knock.
About what?
Oh, they just put in a transfer prediction for DJ to end up at UCLA.
Interesting.
On3 did.
Interesting. And what's the knock joke?
Knock.
Who's there?
Texas.
Texas who?
Exactly.
That's unfortunate.
Hey, I had to steal that from my weatherman, my boy weatherman on PG's the last thing we talked about. That he told us a joke. So
to try to get that Cheez-It room. Ty, have you even seen the Cheez-It room?
Oh yeah, I talked to Nick Carparelli about the Cheez-It rooms at the Cheez-It Bowl. And if y'all haven't seen, guys, I got the opportunity to sit down with the guy who basically runs bowl season, in charge of all your bowl games. He wanted to sit down with us on the channel, and we got to talk to him for about 25 minutes. That video is uploaded. It's a lot of fun. We got to talk about the future of the bowl games and how they will coexist with the expanded college football playoffs. It was incredible. But Texas, I mean, look, I know that you're Oklahoma fans, but real is real. They have the number 1 composite quarterback, the number 1 composite running back, the number 1 composite linebacker, and then Jonte Cook on top of that. Yep. That class is looking really, really, really good for the Texas Longhorns. Look, I got to be real about it.
Yeah. They're but this has never been the problem.
No, it has not.
And I get they're going to get talent, and that's never been the question, and I've never questioned that. The question is, once they get this talent in, if they certainly solidify the class that they keep getting in, the Anthony Hills, the other guys that they've got in, some O linemen, getting some good recruits, can they keep them in the fold and develop them into the guys that everybody is thinking they can be?
So,
and that's the question that I always ask.
And they made massive strides towards that this year, especially along the offensive line. I guess the question is, for me, is the culture changing enough and fast enough for Texas? I do think the development can happen with the staff, but for Texas, I think it's always going to come down to the culture.
So
Yeah, that's something certainly to watch. And look, one of the things that I've talked about, and Smash says it right here, all these top 5 classes for Texas to go to the Alamo Bowl. The problem is that Texas has never recruited with cohesion, or at least they didn't for a while, up until Steve Sarkisian got there. And then you look, and here's a great example. And I'm not saying they got a class like this, but I made this exact same example in my Texas video earlier. They might have a recruiting class where they have 5 stars, just in theory, and all of them are skill position guys. Meanwhile, their offensive line is one of the worst in the nation, and they have nothing on the offensive line.
Yeah.
And then they're wondering the next year why they can't keep a quarterback upright. It's like, well, you're not recruiting based on need. You're recruiting based on
I think
flash.
that's something that's you're starting to see Sarkisian do well.
Very well.
He's finding recruits that fit the needs for Texas. And I think the last couple coaches, I think Tom Herman, Charlie Strong, they just recruited the best quote available, that wanted the scholarship. And I think what maybe can turn the tide for Texas is now filling the needs of some question marks in their roster. And so I think that definitely you are seeing some of that. And I think that's rubbing off on Sarkisian because he's seen it done at Alabama and, some other spots where you can't just recruit 5-star guys. Obviously we've seen that at Texas A&M. You can't recruit 9 defensive linemen at Texas A&M.
It's not going to work.
It's not going to work. And so I think that, yes, he has done credit to, I know, people are going to bust me for saying this, but credit to Texas for doing what they're doing right now. And it seems to, provide them, like PG said, you started seeing a little bit of that stability at times this year. And hopefully that continues, as they're trying to build for the SEC as well. And it looks to be, an early exit for them and us going to the SEC. So,
which is going to be great for the SEC. And I've maintained that. I mean, I have absolutely maintained that. There's nobody who can convince me that adding in 2 of the top 10 biggest brands into the SEC is bad for SEC football.
Absolutely not.
Refuse to believe it. It's going to be great. Going to be great for the SEC. Y'all, if y'all are in here, if you're enjoying your time, be sure to hit that like button. Helps us out a ton. But we need to keep moving forward because Colorado recruiting and transfer portal. PG, I know you just put together a video, so I'll start with you here, but I'll quickly introduce the topic and just say, I'll talk transfer portal. I just have one name I'll give you all. Smoke Bowie out of Texas A&M. Watch this. Watch this battle. Savage, very interested in hearing from you. Hop down to the comments. Let me know how you think Georgia will factor into this one, because coming out of high school, kid was from Georgia, committed to Georgia, and was a really, really great player in the high school ranks. But one thing that was major in his recruiting process was Nick Williams. When Nick Williams moved from Georgia to Texas A&M, so too did Smoke Bowie. Now Nick Williams is no longer with Texas A&M. He's the defensive line coach of Colorado. And once that move is made official, Smoke Bowie in the transfer portal. So is Colorado the destination? I'm not sure, but it is certainly something to watch. PG, talk to us a little bit now that I've kind of introduced the Smoke Bowie smoke, for lack of a better word, and how that'd be something to keep an eye on. Talk to us about the recruiting this weekend. Triple D, thank you for joining us this evening.
Yeah, I mean, how long do you want me to talk? No,
right.
Deion and Tim Brewster, they actually have a pretty good recruiting weekend ahead of them. Lots of players coming in for officials. And, I think one of the or some of the biggest smoke is they've actually got 3 players from St. Thomas
Aquinas. Yep. One of them's a top 300 guy. Yep.
They have Isaiah Harge, who's already committed to him. Jason Hammond, who recently decommitted from Iowa State. I think he's been giving West Virginia some looks. But then they also got the guy who you're talking about, Conrad Hussey, the 4-star top 175 player in the country, 4-star safety coming in here. I think all of them are on official visits this weekend. And I think the reason to believe is that a lot of them are feeling good about kind of where Tim Brewster and Charles Kelly and Deion is sitting with these players. Ultimately, this has probably got to be the biggest recruiting weekend I think Colorado's ever had.
Well, and then Smash points it out. Malachi Coleman cancels his visit to Michigan to go take a visit to Coach Prime and the Buffs. That is telling. That's a
Yeah.
4-star guy that a lot of colleges want. That's going to guys.
Top
Colorado
100
was
player.
1-11.
Yeah, Malachi Coleman's a top 100 player, and you're going to have to be able to have guys like Malachi Coleman on this team for Deion Sanders to be able to go out there and succeed at a high level in this offense. Now, it's great to get skill guys around him, but they're also going to have to hit the transfer portal and get some offensive linemen to be able to protect him.
Very true.
And, you've heard some smoke maybe around Johnny Cornelius or some of those other guys. I think a Johnny ends up somewhere else. I don't think he ends up at Colorado, but there's lots of offensive lineman choices for him. But to just go down the list real quick of guys that we know are confirmed for their visits this week, you've got Kason Wiseman, the 3-star quarterback, 3-star athlete Ethan O'Connor, the 3-star wide receiver Isaiah Harge. You got Hammond. We talked about those guys. The 3-star offensive lineman Rhino Tapa Patillo, the 4-star safety Conrad Hussey, 4-star athlete Malachi Coleman, 4-star cornerback Juaswan Frosto. I'm getting butchered a lot of these names. And then you've got the 4-star athlete Vakari Swan. But they also have several transfer portal guys coming in. So big recruiting weekend for Colorado. And the other thing that I would really note, especially on the recruiting trail for Colorado, watch who does not put pen to paper on the 21st. And I think that's what Deion Sanders is trying to watch for. Who doesn't, especially 5-stars, who doesn't sign? Because that means they're already on the fence and they have not made a decision. And so if you see a guy like, we've talked about it, Zachariah Branch at USC, does not sign on pen and paper on the 21st, you might want to watch out for Deion there.
It's exactly the kind of stuff I was talking about earlier.
Hakeem Williams at Florida State, 5-star wide receiver. I'm expecting the same thing from him. And there's a lot of other 3- and 4-star guys that I think could make an impact. So something you all need to keep an eye on. Who does not sign on the 21st?
Yep. And I kind of, that's kind of, to go off my point earlier was it's become a paralleled almost universe between the early signing period and the transfer portal, because guys are just waiting to see what other guys are doing and then kind of making their moves. Obviously there's some backdoor talk and different stuff going on, but I think a lot of guys are just kind of waiting. All right, who's signing, who's not, where am I going to fit? If this guy ends up going this way, I'm going to go this way. So it's definitely chess and not checkers at this point, leading up to December 21st.
Yeah, and one thing before before we get too far into this and I forget, I'll give you a quick recap as to the Alabama news we were referencing. It was 2 parts. First and foremost, Bryce Young, Will Anderson, both declaring they intend to play in the bowl game, which is massive. But the big news that I think is very important for Alabama. A few days ago, Veal, we did a video talking about how Alabama, Colorado, Oregon, all were trying to flip 5-star offensive tackle, my personal #1 offensive tackle in the nation, Caden Proctor. Since then, Alabama got an in-home visit, and that escalated from an in-home visit to now Caden Proctor is taking an unofficial visit per reports to Alabama this weekend, meaning the family's paying out of their own pocket to go see the Tide. That's a huge win for Alabama. They were in the top 2. If they could flip Caden Proctor, I mean, there's no underselling how big that would be. That's the Alabama news to kind of get that caught up. D makes a great point here.
I was just gonna say 5 stars that you all really need to watch out for to put into paper that Colorado needs to be. You'd be focused on Colorado potentially getting. You talked about it with Caden Proctor in Alabama. There's been a lot of smoke about him potentially looking to go out there. Yeah. And then again, I would look at guys like Nicholas Harbor, Deuce Robinson. Like we said, if maybe Desmond Ricks doesn't find a home, if you're a DB and he comes
skill
knocking on your
position
door,
guys, skill position guys. If he's pitching, you listen.
Yeah. So those are just some 5-star guys that you guys should watch for the 21st, and then immediately watch for Deion to start throwing some offers out, probably as soon as the evening of the 17th.
Very true. And look, here's the thing. Yeah, Savage, don't. You're gonna I don't know if any of you watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, but the episode where they go to the therapist and Frank is like, "Oh, you've undone me. You've undone me. That's what you're going to do right here, Savage. You're going to open up a can of worms and I'm going to go down that rabbit hole. It'll be 3 hours from now and I'll still be red in the face and ranting in it." So I'm not going to take that bait. Not this evening. That's next live stream. Absolutely. But just, kind of focusing back, Colorado, one of the things, guys, that we need to be aware of is look at the staff Coach Prime has assembled. We know how Coach Prime moves the needle. We saw him do it at Jackson State. But then you look, Charles Kelly, the defensive coordinator, and I can't tell you how many people I've had say, "Hey, Charles Kelly, he wasn't a great defensive coordinator." And in fairness, if you go check the numbers, he wasn't a world-beating defensive coordinator. But guys, do you know what Kelly can do? He is an elite recruiter. An elite recruiter. Not only that, he has ties to Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. So now he goes with Coach Prime to Colorado. And right now, if you're Coach Prime in Colorado, what's the name of the game? It's talent acquisition. Acquiring as much talent as you can as quickly as you can. So you now have a pipeline because you're Coach Prime to Florida, naturally, being from Florida State alum.
Yep.
But now you double down with Charles Kelly, who's got Florida, Georgia, Alabama. Then you go and get Nick Williams, who's been known as an elite recruiter. You get Sean Lewis, who had an incredible offense. It's going to be really interesting.
Well, and you've also got the Kent State head coach who's got the Northern ties.
Yeah, Sean Lewis.
Sean Lewis.
Yeah. That's. I mean, it's.
Yeah.
Well, and Tim Brewster has been able to recruit before as well.
Yes,
he got.
great
Remember,
point.
he got Marvin Wilson, Dalvin Cook, Erman Lane. Yeah. But Charles Kelly, I would be interested to see who Charles Kelly could potentially flip from other places, or if maybe he can flip some of, maybe a certain 5-star that's committed to Alabama.
Well, I'm not worried about that one. Bama had T-Rob real involved in Caleb Downs. I think the moment that there was any indication, because I don't know about y'all, I'd heard some wind that Kelly was to Colorado for about 2 weeks before that I made that video. So I think it was expected.
I'm just gonna be honest. If I see Caleb Downs' name flip on National Signing Day to Colorado, I almost don't even know if I can be shocked at this point, because I just saw Travis Hunter. Yeah. I saw Travis Hunter go to Jackson State last
Good point.
year.
No. Good point. Let me rephrase this. I would be shocked as an Alabama fan, but as a removed college football fan, you're completely right. And
I'd be shocked. Like it hit me, be like, oh my gosh, but then I'd go, all right, yeah, but he's done this before. This ain't
True. Yeah.
That being said, Caleb Downs is not flipping. He is not flipping. Jason says, "Who's Bama's quarterback next year?" Jason, this is a great question. It is not. It is not.
Hey,
one of the things
with Bill O'Brien, how could you not love that combo?
God's mercy. But Drew, I'm gonna piggyback off of something you said. It all depends on who's the offensive coordinator.
Yep.
Because
it's going to be, BB,
So the thing is his contract expires after the ball game. And I don't know what they're going to do. I certainly have my thoughts, but that's neither here nor there.
Yep.
I definitely think we need to go in a different direction. I just think that O'Brien, as much as his offense will, help you for the NFL, it asks way too much. I mean, it asks way too much of a quarterback. You look at what they did against Texas A&M. Jalen Milroe is a talented kid. If you watch the spring game, he was throwing the ball well. Goodness gracious.
And he played well in a few games this year, Arkansas, he and stuff like that. But
against A&M looked like
just sustain that through the whole season. I don't know if he's that guy. So that's a great point.
We have got to figure out who the offensive coordinator is going to be, because I think that depends on who the quarterback will be. But it's not going to be Bryce, right? Let's be honest. I think that there's some very talented quarterbacks in the work. It's not going to be Bryce.
He's playing in the bowl game. He may just be staying.
Boy,
Will Anderson.
Could you imagine if Bryce Young and Will Anderson stay for another season at Alabama? Y'all
would not hear the end of me. I would hop on this. For about two
We'd
and
be
a half
doing a
weeks
live
straight.
stream every day for the next.
I
3
would
weeks.
I would absolutely cry. But you never know. You never know with the competitiveness
Hey,
of
they
some
No,
may
players.
just. Hey, they may just hit the transfer portal. You know.
Oh,
All right,
that
let's
would...
we've gone too far now. We've gone.
Yeah, wait. Hey, Charles Kelly recruited Will Anderson. Will Anderson to
Right.
Colorado, baby.
We've gone too far now.
Sorry.
Let's rein it back in. No, it's look, anything can happen. I'm very pleasantly surprised they're both playing in the bowl game. I think that's
Yeah.
huge. And let's be very honest, Bama needs it. They need to finish the year on a high note.
Sure.
It was a solid, by anybody else's metrics, it was a solid year. By Alabama's metrics, it was not.
Down year for Alabama.
Exactly.
Yes,
See,
we were
but I
just
would
joking. Will Anderson and
Oh
Bryce
yeah,
Young are
we're
headed to the NFL.
we're just messing around now,
Yes,
right?
that
We're
is-
just
I will say this.
Trolling.
I'm excited that Will Anderson's playing in that game, but if I'm a Bama fan, I almost like you want Bryce Young to play because he's the best quarterback in that room. But I've always been under the mindset when you're not playing for a championship, why not just play some of your younger guys in those bowl games? Let them get experience, figure out who you've
speaking
got in
of,
a real game experience instead of
look at
playing.
the rule that just passed today,
Yeah.
Yep.
or it's intended to pass today. Drew, you
Yeah, that-
sent it. You wanna walk us through that one?
It was the which rule was it?
The where you can play in a postseason game and not have it affect your 4-game eligibility in college football. That's
Yeah, that is huge. I think that's really good, especially for some of these young players and the freshmen that have come in. There's nothing like live game reps. I mean, you could try to simulate it in practice and scout teams and all this stuff, but to see guys in live reps and in game situations, I mean, there's nothing better to put on film than that. And for it to not count against your four games, huge. I love the rule. I love rules like this where you look at them and you examine them and you say, "Hey, is this good for the game? Is this good for our players? Is this good for football as a whole?" And I think that was one of the rules that was looked at and changed for the better. I love it. So,
but it's only been changed though for 1 year, right? Just this year.
I would assume it's a lasting
it's gonna
change.
go for. I'm assuming it's going to go carry on. So
I certainly hope not, Savage. I'd love for him to be in a Crimson Tide uniform. Super, super, super talented player. Unbelievably talented player. But you can never count out Georgia. I know that he canceled the in-home visit for Georgia and Ohio State, but it's Georgia. You don't feel confident recruiting against Georgia until the ink is on the paper. That's just the reality of the situation.
So, kind of off topic, but good news for the Sooners. Khalib Hicks just announced that he's pretty locked in. These rumors aren't true. So
that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Now, some of the stuff we need to talk about before we get out of here. Miami Cruton. What in the world? I mean, goodness, Mario Cristobal has 2 of the top 3 tackles in the nation. Mawanoa and Francis Mawanoa and Samson Okunlola. What do y'all think about this? How long before the recruiting wins translate into on-field wins?
See, the difference though between what Miami's doing this year and what Texas A&M did last year is it doesn't seem like they're just trying to stack it all at one position, and it really seems like they're trying to go out there and get, who's going to best fit in their system. And I mean, let's be honest, on the offensive line, I think that's one of the only rooms that you could stack, and it still probably wouldn't be enough.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I think it just remains to be seen. I think that everybody had high hopes because he's a Miami alum and everything like that, and wanted to bring back the glory days of yesteryear and the Hurricanes and bringing all that noise back. But it's great that you got those good tackles, but you also need to keep guys from transferring or decommitting from your program as well too. So can they sustain that? Yes, that's a good start, but we'll see if it can translate to on the field. That's the $1 million question. Don't really have a whole lot of answers there. So,
well, I'll give him a pass this year for all the guys leaving
They had a
throughout
lot
the
of
transfer portal, because here's my thing about specifically Miami and Oklahoma, right? When you look at Miami and Oklahoma, there is a culture there was a culture problem at both of those places. And the coaches have to be able to come in there and change the culture. And luckily for this year and next year, there is not a commit cap on how many commits you can take in these classes.
Yeah.
So these are the 2 years where you are like, you send everybody out that you can through the portal and take as many recruits in as possible and transfer portal folks that best fit your program and your culture so that you can fix it.
So I will say this. I don't necessarily think Oklahoma had a bad culture problem because they were still winning, but I think the situations are too different. Where you had Oklahoma, just a different style of culture, I think is for me a better use of that. But I think Miami was more of a just, hey, we're not winning, we don't care, we're going to do whatever we want, and I mean it was like anarchy basically.
Yeah, I will die on the hill saying that OU had a culture problem, especially because I heard
it was a culture problem. I say it was a different culture because you were still winning games, you were still competing at a high level. When you say it's there was still some discipline in there. There were still some things that happened. Yes, we don't agree with maybe some of the things that were going on, but I don't think it was a full on like just bad. There were some bad apples. You're going to have that at every program, but I think to compare the two, I wouldn't really, put the two programs hand in hand.
I'm comparing the two in terms of having to send people out to be able to bring these kind of recruits in because you have that ability over the next 2 years. And what I mean by the culture problem at Oklahoma is we have been trending for the season that we have had now for the past 2 or 3 years. I think now that people have seen this season, they see that this could have happened in the past 2 years easy, because
even
the
last
games
year,
kept
how many
getting,
times did
yeah.
we didn't do streams together last year. I can't tell you. I got in trouble by some Oklahoma fans last year because I kept uploading and saying, hey, something doesn't look right. And I would get told, hey, a win is a win. And I would say, you're right, but there's a massive difference between a 3-point win against UConn and a 27-point win against Georgia. Not all wins are created equal.
Sure.
But
I think that was not so much the culture. It was
fair,
so much the fact that Lincoln Riley was already out the door.
Well, we had the same problem in 2020 though. And it was, I think, and here's where I didn't believe we had a culture problem until this season, because I've seen guys stand out on the field, they give up a big play, they start to lack on the defensive side of the ball, and you start to see things that they were doing during the previous era, right? Where it's like, oh my gosh, here we go again. You just see the body language. And those are the kind of problems that I'm like, all right, that has to go. Because you can't continue to have that.
I think that's more of an opinion than it is like somebody saying that, oh, your program is just flat out, you're doing shady stuff, you're doing all that. That's more of a culture problem I see than certain coaches with a certain style of culture.
Okay, yeah, I can see that point then, if you're talking about the shadiness. But
yeah, that's where I see when you have a bad culture, when you got guys just blatantly just breaking rules and doing all this other stuff, and there's drugs, alcohol, all that kind of like the Miami of old stuff like that. I look at that as a bad culture.
Y'all ever heard about the 7th floor boys at Miami?
Yeah, and I'm not giving Lincoln Riley a pass, but I just think that the style was more of his style than it was a quote problem. And I think that some programs are better suited for different.
This is a bad take. This is a bad take.
No, it's not. It is not. It is not at all a bad take. Truth says Riley isn't that great of a recruiter. Very Herman-esque in terms of cohesion. What he's saying is y'all will stack talent. You do not have cohesive classes. Oklahoma was taking a class of 16. You didn't have the depth already, but Lincoln Riley was like, cool, 16, got it. Everybody else in college football looked and they're like, what? You got 10 more spots, buddy. They're blue chip 4-stars that want to come play for you. And he's like, no, I'm good. But now all of a sudden,
I think
you don't
that goes
have any
back
more.
To his style.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
No, that's a great take. I
agree.
He's a really good recruiter, but not at assembling a class top to bottom, 25 guys through. And you look at it and you're like, there's your offensive line answered. There's your defensive line answered. There's your linebackers. Yep. That just hasn't been what he's done. That's a great point.
No, I will disagree with that. Truth, I think that we had we had talent on the defense. We just didn't have a very good scheme on the defensive side.
But to get back to the point, though, Miami, they are doing a lot of things right, especially on the recruiting trail.
Sure.
And you would expect, a place like Miami or Oklahoma over the next 2 years to really start to turn it around when you start to see these classes really get into effect.
No. Oh no.
Where at USC or where? Where are you
Oh
talking about?
goodness gracious, Kale. Oh no.
Hey, if I was Coach O, I would not want to get back on the sideline, especially if I got all that cash that I do now and just living it up,
Oh yeah, he could go do TV after Urban Meyer takes another role
Heck
somewhere.
yeah, man. Put him on Big Noon Kickoff.
Paradox, we already talked about this, but I mean, I'll give you a light recap. Two things. First and foremost, Alabama, for Bryce Young and Will Anderson, it's been a long day. Coming back to play the bowl game, I think that's huge, especially for Bama wanting to finish strong in terms of recruiting and on the season. And two, and the biggest one, 2 days ago, I did a video talking about Alabama and Colorado and Coach Prime pushing for Caden Proctor as well as Oregon. A day later, Alabama got the in-home visit yesterday, and now Alabama's set to get an unofficial this weekend, meaning they're going to pay out of pocket to come to Tuscaloosa. That's huge. Bama could be on the precipice of flipping a 5-star tackle. Huge, huge, huge.
For sure.
Kale says USC recruiting. You're
talking about South Carolina? There's guys that are just leaving and, doing other stuff. But I think Shane Beamer, he'll get it going,
I'll never forget the wildest story I heard. And it's one of the wildest stories I've heard in quite some time. And then there's one comment I did want to talk about, this one right here. But to keep it at USC recruiting, one of the craziest Coach O stories I heard is that he had his girlfriends at the football practice. And if those girls had kids, the kids were running the drills with the football team.
He did it at LSU once too.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm talking about at LSU. Like he won the national championship and then just literally said, "Cool, I'm done," and like nothing else good happened. It was wild. Jeff says, "Did these kids give back the NIL stuff when they transfer? I.e., Spencer Rattler. What a mess." Jeff, if you're still in here, I think you are because you commented about the U. You're on the right train of thought, but I think you're asking the wrong question. Let me explain here. I don't think the question should be, what about the kids? What about the people giving them the NIL deals? If you're the guy sitting there and someone offers you $1.5 million, you'd be foolish not to take it.
Bring it here.
So the issue is not with the kids signing the deal. The issue is with the people throwing around all the money. If we have a problem with NIL, the issue with people's perception on NIL has to be with the people that are throwing around the money as opposed to the people being given the money. So you're on the right line of questioning, but flip the agent and the principal in your example. And then I think you and I agree 1,000%. That's the way I view it.
Yep. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. Well, guys, that's for those of you that didn't know, I was a little under the weather. That's why we did this before and getting pretty exhausted. So kind of closing thoughts, PG, I'll start with you, then go to Drew. What are y'all thinking?
I'm just ready for the Peyton Bowen saga to finally end so I can, not have to think about that. And, UTSA is breaking off a long run. Looks like they might score. Yeah, bowl season started. So awesome. I'm here trying to take in all the last bit of college football I can before we head into another long off season.
Drew, what about yourself, man?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, like I said earlier, this chess version of recruiting right now and how the transfer portal kind of coincides with that here in the next week to month or so. Kind of seeing the ripple effects of the signing classes, as you talk about the transfer portal and seeing guys move around and stuff like that, and then seeing some of these rosters kind of settle in. And then, so it'll be interesting. Next Wednesday, obviously, will be huge. Yes, they are. They're going absolutely.
Oh, no. Forward. I can't imagine. Poor Notre Dame. Yeah. Guys, they've had a rough year.
They have.
I hate Ty. I put one in our group
it'll be exciting to see what transpires over the next week or so. That's why we're here for it. I'm off school, so I may just pop and do random lives and during the middle of the day. Who knows? So
And like I said, Wednesday, whenever signing day goes live, I'm nothing for sure yet, but guys, just know we might be live almost all day.
hey, I'm here for it.
I might
You're
be
watching-
doing a 6 or 8 hour stream.
You're
we'll
waiting
see.
for that Colorado 5-star flip to happen.
Right.
God, don't
Hey,
jinx me.
It'll be fun. Nevertheless, whatever goes on next Wednesday
Don't jinx me.
for college football, it's we'll be here to talk about it. So
Absolutely. Savage, thank you for being in here. Guys, everybody in here, thank you for being a part of it. Hit the like button if you're in here. Drop down in the comments. Let us know what you're thinking. PG, Drew, before we get out of here, be sure to let the people know where they can find all of your awesome content.
Yeah, y'all can find me, The PG Show, on YouTube, Apple, Google, or Spotify. You guys can also find me, The PG Show _ on Twitter. Listen, I'm constantly putting out some recruiting transfer portal updates, not just for Oklahoma, but for lots of other teams. I got a Colorado video up with Deion Sanders talking about some of the stuff that we talked about earlier. So go ahead, head on over and check that out.
For sure. And then I am with the Under Official Review podcast. We do live streams. We're going to start doing some more stuff as well, but we just talk college football. We love doing it. You can find us just like where you do PG stuff, YouTube channel, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and then we have all of our audio stuff on Spotify and Apple. So go check us out, follow us, subscribe, like that, and make sure you hit the likes here in this video before y'all leave, and get this video as well as all of Ty's awesome stuff trending. So
yeah, appreciate y'all joining with me this evening. We'll be definitely back making more content tomorrow, and look for maybe a little surprise live on Sunday, guys. I'll be sure to let you know tomorrow for sure, but I might be feeling froggy on Sunday and just going live and talking some college football. But with that, thank y'all all for being here, and we'll see you next time. Spinning wheel of death ensues.